Got it. And I'm going to open up the webinar.
Welcome all. We will get started shortly. We'll get started in just one moment. All right, as we wait for others to join, I wanted to welcome everyone. I am Marisa Schultz with Altogether, and we're so excited to see you all tonight. Before we kick things off, we want to hear from you and learn, what is your favorite hidden gem in the Central area? It could be a place, a business, or an event. So to share your hidden gem, you can scan the QR code that's up on the screen with your smartphone, or open a tab on your browser, visit menti.com, and then type in the code. And I'll read out that code. It's 67974178. As you all share your favorite hidden gems in the Central area, they'll pop up here on the screen. We've got some Ping Tom Parks, Pittsfield Cafe, great one. Printers Row. The Lakeshore Parks and the walking trails, the Riverwalk. Monk's Pub. I'll have to check that one out. For those of you who are just joining, we want to hear what your favorite gem is in the Central area before we kick things off. So you can scan the QR code that is up on the screen. You'll see it to your lower left with your smartphone, or you can open a tab on your browser, visit menti.com, and then type in the code that you'll see under enter the code here. I love seeing all of these come in that will be not so hidden gems. The Quincy L Station, Michael Jordan Steakhouse. We'll give everyone just another moment to add in their hidden gems. So thank you all for sharing. You can continue to drop in your gems. In the meantime, I'm going to pass the mic over to Cindy Rubik from the city's Department of Planning and Development to kick things off for us tonight.
Thank you, Marisa. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm Cindy Rubik, Deputy Commissioner with the Department of Planning and Development, and I've been with the department for 18 years, but my role here is really just to introduce Commissioner Cox, Commissioner Maurice Cox, who has been with the department for almost 4 years now, and he's really been a proponent for long-range planning all throughout the city, from the north side of the city with the Western Avenue Corridor Plan to the south side of the city, far south side of the city with the 95th plan. And now, of course, updating the central area plan is a really important milestone for us. So Commissioner Cox, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Cindy. And thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We're fortunate as well to have Alderman Dow joining us, as well as Alderman Burnett is here. Thank you. And I believe we also have a representative from Alderman Riley's office, Joanna. So thanks everyone for being here. This is a rare opportunity for the city and the public to update the formal vision for downtown. So I hope you're as excited as I am. I know, as you may know, it's been about 20 years since the Chicago Plan Commission adopted the Central Area Plan as a guide for downtown growth. And as the 2003 plan anticipated, it's time to reassess our priorities for the area and the city itself. I like to say that neighborhoods are the soul of the city, and that the downtown is the heart, because downtowns belong to everyone, and it has the power, I think, to foster life and vitality far beyond its borders. So it's important that we get the central area update right, because it's going to resonate well beyond the area's geographic boundaries and for a long time to come. We have a presentation for you this evening that will serve as a foundation for ongoing discussions. But more than the stats and trends that you'll be hearing about, it's the city's need to hear from you, which is most important. And that's what's going to make this process so unique and so different than the 2003 plan. This plan is going to be community driven, and it's going to reflect your priorities. So when the update is presented for potential adoption by Plan Commission approximately 18 months from now, its goals and objectives will have been created by Chicagoans, for Chicagoans, not exclusively by City Hall. The planning department's role at that point will be to facilitate implementation through new policies, legislation, budgeting, and administration that will make those goals come true, resulting, we hope, in a more equitable and resilient part of the city. For the record, this will be the first neighborhood plan to move forward since Plan Commission adopted the We Will citywide plan this February. And We Will's community-driven process will be replicated through the planning pillars that will facilitate the discussion of major themes like housing and neighborhoods, economic development, arts and culture, public health and safety, and a number of others. We know that Chicago stakeholders have plenty to say, and there will be multiple opportunities for people to provide comments and ideas long after tonight's meeting. There may be competing voices, but one thing will be certain. We believe the update needs to speak to our time. The 2003 plan clearly spoke to its era's priorities when downtowns across the country We're experiencing revivals that continue to this day. That's why the 2003 plan, along with its 2009 action plan, focused their priorities around high-density mixed-use corridors, improved waterfront access and parks, enhanced transit and mobility resources, increased tourism and college opportunities, and many, many other local amenities that did and didn't move forward, but nonetheless anticipated the area's exponential growth over the next 20 years. So today we're dealing with an entirely different set of circumstances coming out of a pandemic and an economic downturn, including issues like remote work, online shopping, virtual learning, affordability, and many other issues that would have seemed like science fiction in 2003, but are the ever-present reality we live today and that we're experiencing even at this moment. So fortunately, we know planning can accomplish great things, especially when the public is informed, engaged, and empowered. So I just want to thank you for joining us tonight and for staying engaged in the months ahead. We've got a lot of work to do. So now I'd like to turn it over to one of our lead Central Area planners, Heidi Sperry, who will get us rolling this evening. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to everyone who's joined us today. I'd especially like to acknowledge Alderman Lee, who I see has just joined the call. I am Heidi Sperry. I'm the lead planner for the Central Region here with the Department of Planning and Development. And tonight, we will start off with a quick overview. If we could go to the next slide. Quick overview of the project overview. We'll discuss existing conditions. We'll conduct a quick visioning exercise. Then we'll wrap up by outlining the next steps of this planning initiative and answer any questions as many questions as we can possibly get to. And to that point, we would ask that you submit your questions in the chat and we will do our best to get to as many as we possibly can. We could go to the next slide, please. So why we plan? Planning yields practical and profound impacts. Some of the projects that have emerged from the 2003 and 2009 Central Area plans include Northerly Island and the expanded lakefront open space, as well as transportation improvements that you see here. Things such as the Morgan Street CTA station, the Loop BTR, Loop Link BTR, the Navy Pier flyover, and the boathouse at Ping Tom Park. We could go to the next slide. And additionally, there are projects such as the Riverwalk, the expansion of the water taxi service, the restoration and reuse of the landmark Carson Peary Scott building, and of course, Millennium Park. And these have shaped the loop in indescribable ways. You go to the next slide, please. For the past 20 years, the growth of this, if we could advance it one more time. For the past 20 years, the growth of the Central Area has been guided by the Central Area Plan of 2003 and later the Central Area Action Plan of 2009. The 2009 Action Plan was a project-based implementation plan, which identified about $125 million in potential projects. We could go to the next slide, please. Through the Central Area Plan update effort, and we want to understand where you see the opportunities and the challenges in today's Central Area. Our planning process is organized around the We Will Chicago pillars, seen here, with the addition of a land use category. And similarly to the We Will Chicago effort, this effort will be grounded in the principles of equity and resiliency. Next slide, please. The initial phase of our 2-year planning process focuses on setting long-term goals and creating a community-driven vision for the Central Area. Next slide, please. During the first phase, we'll be tracking and reporting on previous plans. as well as analyzing existing conditions, some of which we will highlight in just a moment. And we've convened preliminary focus groups where we've talked to stakeholders, including residents and representatives from business, cultural affairs, non-for-profit organizations, as well as youth and local leaders. Now we're excited to fully launch our engagement efforts, and we want to hear from you. Please visit our website where you can sign up to receive updates on our numerous events that we will be holding throughout the summer. And with the community's input that we receive, we'll draft a vision statement and then come back to the community for review and further input. With this vision statement, we'll have a guide for the second phase of the Central Area Plan Update Initiative. We could go to the next slide. Finally, now that we understand the goals and the timelines of the process, let's talk about what we mean by the central area. The 2003 plan used the boundary shown on the left, and as you can see, the central area has expanded twice since then. Today's boundaries, which are seen on the far right, are defined by the downtown district zoning overlay. And this is the core of the city where higher building densities can be accommodated. Currently, the central area covers 7.2 square miles and includes portions of 6 community areas. Now, Fran Ruud of SB Friedman will share some highlights of the central area's existing conditions. Fran?
Thanks, Heidi. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Fran Ruud. I'm a partner at SB Friedman, and we've been working with the city on the first phase of this Central Area Plan update. We do want to spend some time this evening talking you through what we're seeing in terms of trends and existing conditions in each of those pillars that Heidi just talked about. And then, of course, we're going to shift into getting your input on the vision for the future. So the central area, which we also refer to as the downtown district, it's only about 3% of the city's total land area, but it holds 7% of city's residents and over 50% of the city's jobs. You can see there are over close to 625,000 private sector jobs in the downtown, so it's very much an economic engine for the city. It's also home to many residents. In 2000, Chicago's downtown population actually ranked 6th among the top 10 most populous downtowns nationally. Here in the map, the circles that you see show the relative population in each of those downtowns in 2000. This is 2020. The new circles show what the current population is. So you can see how dramatically Chicago's population downtown has grown. It actually grew the fastest among these 10 cities. And now we have the largest population of the cities shown here. We added 87,000 residents from 2000 to 2020. We do know that growth has been uneven downtown. People of color are really underrepresented in the downtown today. About 30% of citywide population identifies as Black or African American, and only about 10% of the central area population identifies as such. And we see a similar discrepancy here in the chart between for those who identify as Hispanic or Latino and for Native Americans. Relative to the city, we also see that the downtown district has a higher concentration of young professionals and a lower concentration of school-aged children. So about 43% of downtown district residents are young adults between the ages of 20 and 34, and only 10% are school-aged children, compared to almost a quarter of citywide residents that are school-aged. The vast majority of the 95,000 housing units that are occupied downtown are multifamily units, which is no surprise given the type of density that we have in the downtown area. About 40% of those are owner occupied. And you can see here, and again, probably not a surprise to a lot of people who live in the downtown or spent time there, but rents downtown tend to be expensive. The average studio rent downtown is more than $1,800 per month. And for a household to find this rent affordable, meaning that they don't spend any more than 30% of their income on housing, that household would have to earn at least $73,000. That means 55% of households in the city would not even be able to afford a studio apartment in the downtown district, let alone a 2-bedroom unit that could accommodate a family. Thinking a little bit more about affordable housing, we looked at the rental units that are affordable downtown, and about 10% are affordable, meaning they're either legally restricted and required to maintain affordability over time, or they would be affordable to households that earn up to 60% of the area median income. So 10% in the downtown district compared to 47% citywide that are affordable according to those metrics. And most of the units in the downtown that are affordable, about 4,500 of them, are the legally restricted affordable housing units, leaving very few of those naturally occurring affordable housing units in the downtown district.
And just to quickly interrupt, I just wanted to recognize that Alderman Dahl has joined our meeting as well.
Great.
Nice to see you, Alderman Dahl.
So in addition to being home to many, and we'll hear more about the economic vitality of the downtown, but downtown Chicago is also provides educational opportunities for people of all ages, from childhood all the way to college, technical training, and beyond. It really is a hub for lifelong learning. Over 31,000 students are enrolled in the colleges and universities that have main campuses in the central area, and that doesn't include students at Northwestern University Medical Campus that are affiliated with Northwestern outside of the central area. It also excludes UIC, which is right outside the boundary. We also know downtown is a cultural hub and a destination. We saw this in all of the hidden gems that you all were providing through the Menti exercise earlier. We have all kinds of amenities and attractions, the waterfront, the Riverwalk, architecture, museums, performing arts centers, cultural and dining districts. And what we've started to see is that some downtown events do now extend out into the neighborhoods, and then other events like Pride and other events have evolved to have a presence downtown, which is really helping to connect the central area to Chicago's many neighborhoods. The great parks and open space downtown do really help to attract visitors and host many of those events, but also serve as recreational space for residents. Here you can see the distribution of park space across the different community areas that make up the central area, and you see that it's pretty uneven. The general standard we see for parks and open space is about 2 acres of land per 1,000 residents. The Loop and the Near South community areas exceed this standard, with Grant Park and Lakefront Parks offering lots of opportunities for visitors, for residents, and for workers, but Near North and Near West don't meet the standard and do need more open space. We've also started to hear through some of the conversations around the plan that even in the Loop and Near South, there's the need for more space because of so many residents and just the location of the other parkland. So now I'll turn it over to my colleague Ranadeep, who's going to talk through some of the other pillars.
Thank you, Fran. Hello, everyone. Thanks again for taking the time to join us this evening. We have a great turnout, really appreciative of that. I'm Ranadeep Bose, partner at SB Friedman. So Fran talked about living downtown and downtown living, and I'm going to begin by talking about working downtown. Job growth in the downtown district has had its ups and downs with economic cycles, but overall has been a story of growth with 75,000 jobs gained in the last 2 decades. But if you start back in 2001, there were nearly 550,000 private sector jobs in the zip codes that overlap the downtown. With 2 recessions, over 50,000 jobs were actually lost by 2010. But then we have had 9 years of robust growth, with about 145,000 jobs added through 2019. And of course, then there was the pandemic where we lost 60,000 jobs, but then it's been a quicker recovery. We've had 40,000 jobs recovered since then. And in 2022, there are approximately 625,000 private sector jobs in the downtown. How we commute to work also change, and this is nationwide or worldwide. This slide shows the 8 cities in the nation with the highest number of commuters using transit. In Chicago, in 2019, 28% of workers took public transportation, similar to Boston, Philadelphia, and it's about the average of all of these cities, if you exclude New York, which is kind of an outlier. But only 6% of workers work from home pre-pandemic. That, of course, changed dramatically with the onset of the pandemic as more people began working from home. In 2021, only 12% of Chicagoans, less than half of pre-pandemic levels, commuted by public transportation to work. The number of workers working from home increased by a factor of more than 4. You can go to the next slide. Yeah. So how we work has changed. We no longer have the traditional 5-day work week. We are now in a new normal of a hybrid work week where businesses in many economic sectors allow employees to work 2 to 3 days from home. The data in this chart is real-time data. It's basically based on card swipes of office workers as they enter office buildings. It shows weekly in-person occupancy from the month before the onset of the pandemic all through this month. And even now, 3 years since the start of the pandemic, the average weekly occupancy in the 10 large metro areas continue to be approximately 50% of pre-pandemic levels. And Chicago is also pretty much at that citywide average. We just exceed it, but we are at that 50% occupancy and just above the 10-city average. So when you have less workers downtown, you have less people patronizing restaurants and bars and shopping in stores downtown. So this data actually is for the Loop and the West Loop area, and you just see that pandemic impact. And we experienced this as we walked down the street. The retail vacancy in the West Loop and Loop area was about 15% in 2019. And since the pandemic, we've seen this rise and remained at over 28% over the 21 and 2022. So public safety is an ongoing concern citywide and the downtown. From 2018 to 2020, the total number of crimes per 1,000 in the downtown police districts, which overlap this downtown boundary, was actually decreasing. However, crime rose in 2021 and 2022 during and then since the pandemic era started. There is, just like jobs, continued investment in new development in the downtown. And it's generally followed economic cycles, but overall the trends show that downtown is a magnet for investment. From 2006 to 2022, an average of $1.3 billion in new construction costs has been invested in the downtown, according to City of Chicago building permit data. Residential investment has led the way historically and post-pandemic. In 2022, residential accounted for 64% of the total investment. Downtown investment directly helps support neighborhood investment in the city. So developers downtown often seek higher density than what is allowed in the base zoning as of right. To avail of this higher density, they need to make the neighborhood opportunity bonus payment, and 80% of all the contributions of all these bonus contributions go into the neighborhood opportunity fund to support development projects within underinvested west, southwest, and south side commercial corridors. And this goes into grocery stores, restaurants, cultural facilities. Since 2016, approximately $120 million has been allocated to the neighborhood opportunity fund. So thanks everyone for listening and staying with us. I'm now going to turn it over to Kim at Rudd Resources, who's part of our team, to lead us through the visioning exercise.
Thank you, Ranadeep. Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly Rudd with Rudd Resources, and now it is my invitation to you to help us shape the vision. This is what I would think of as the fun part. You've gotten all the data. Many of you experience downtown as residents or workers or visitors. Now we want you to put on your hats as planners and look out 20 years. Look out to a downtown that we not only are reimagining, but we're creating together. What does that new downtown Chicago look like in 2 decades when perhaps your children or grandchildren are enjoying this part of the city, and hopefully you too. So we're going to invite you to use Menti again. to share with us 3 words. So really whittle them down. This is tough, I know, but 3 words that you feel are essential components of the 20-year vision for the Central Area Plan. To use Menti, you simply go to either scan this QR code with your phones, or if you are on a browser, you open up a new window, you go to menti.com and you enter the code 84721008. And I can see that about 54 or so people are already in there. And we simply want you to share 3 words that you think or feel, because we love emotions too in planning, think or feel are essential components of the 20-year plan for the Central area. We're going to share the results in just a minute, but we want to give everybody some time to consider those 3 words. I see that we now have more than 100 contributors to this, and it's growing. This is wonderful. This is also something that, if you have a young person in the house with you, share this with them, have them open up their phones too. We want to hear from people of all ages what those 3 keywords might be. Okay, so this is a word cloud. So what's going to happen is that those words that are used more frequently or by more people will appear larger on the screen. So clearly walkable is important to us. We want to have a central area that is friendly to the pedestrian. This is moving so fast, but I see transit is popping up, and I know public transit is important to a lot of us who are in Chicago. It's one of the attributes of our great city that sits head and shoulders above other cities. Green now sits in the middle of the word cloud. Excuse me. So I'm assuming we're talking about more trees, more grassy areas, vibrant. Car-free is showing up as a large word for me. Accessible. Groceries. Belonging, I love that word, is coming up. Expanded, I wonder what that means. Expanded. Pedestrian based is another word. So here again, we're talking about the ability to use a downtown that is open and accessible for people without cars. Community active. Climate conscious is a new word I'm seeing. I see green transit also. This is like romper room, and as the words get smaller, they get a little more challenging, but centered in the middle continues to be green, walkable, transit, car-free, and accessible. Key themes I see. Architecture has now emerged. Transit-oriented is now emerging. And so, I'm going to get closer and closer to the screen. Bike, I think I saw biking. Lower crime just popped up for me. Human scale, that is interesting. If you put that up, it'd be interesting for you to leave a chat in the Q&A about that. Human scale, affordable housing, active. I see active and activity in many, many different ways. I see BIPOC, I see residential. And by BIPOC, for the sake of clarity, that I assume that means Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So we're looking for a downtown that makes space for all groups, all people, especially BIPOC people. Family friendly. Business now shows up as a word that I'm seeing, but I continue to see walkable, transit, pedestrian. And we're at almost 200 participants. So I'm going to ask my colleagues, are we going to wait until we get to 200? Or can we, you want me to keep reading? Bird friendly, that's a cool one. We have to think about all beings in this space. Sustainable, affordable. So there are 312 people in this webinar. We have 186 participants. We'd love to get to about 200, make sure everybody has a chance to participate. And once again, if this is new for you, you can scan the QR code, or you can go open up a new browser on your computer and go to menti.com, MENTI.com, and enter the code 84721008. I am seeing words like friendly. I just saw the word traditional. I want to encourage you that if you've put in a term that is, I see Cap the Kennedy, if you put in a term like that, do leave a Q&A comment so that our city leaders, our city planners have a greater sense of what you mean. Circle the line. Circle line? So make sure that we understand your phrasing by using the Q&A for additional chats, additional comments. Engaging, innovative is a really cool word. What does an innovative central area plan look like? What does that mean? I saw queer, I see clean, but I see bus-only lanes, historical. I see parks. I also see that someone's left a comment for us. Thank you very much. We've now had 203 submissions, so we really appreciate your thoughts here, and I'm going to now yield the floor.
Thank you, Kim, so much. That was a great exercise, and it was great to see all of the input from everyone who's joined us. Next, we're going to focus on next steps, actually. And really, if you go to the next slide, I think that the response that we just received shows how many great ideas are out there and how much work there is to do in capturing all of the sentiments and all of the thoughts from all of the folks who use, who enjoy, who live and work in the central area. And certainly where we're at now in the process is that we are wrapping up our documentation of the historic process of the projects that were identified as part of the 2003 and 2009 plan. We're also wrapping up our existing conditions report and trends, and we'll be preparing a report that we'll then be coming back to the community with. But we're very excited, obviously, to be moving on to engagement. And we're asking you to engage with us in a multitude of ways. First of all, we'd ask that you visit the Central Area Plan Update website and complete our survey, and then sign up to receive our updates. Our next in-person meeting will occur on May 23rd, and that's an open house that we'll be hosting at the Harold Washington Library, and I'd absolutely encourage everyone to attend. The meeting will occur from 4:30 to 6:30. And we would encourage you also to, as part of our website, when you sign up for upcoming events, you'll learn about our upcoming pop-up events. We're envisioning 7 or more, likely more, in-person pop-up events throughout the city, in communities throughout the central area and throughout the city over the course of the summer. So definitely please participate in that. And then finally, after we gather your feedback, after we hear from you and collect the information that you're providing to us tonight and at our subsequent events, it's our intention to go back and draft a vision statement for the central area that really encapsulates the themes that we're hearing. And then we'll come back to you, come back to the community, come back to our focus groups with a draft vision, and then understand if we've gotten your vision statements right. We want further input from you as we continue to refine that. This will be a collaborative and an iterative process. We could go to the next slide. And I think now I would like to invite several aldermen have joined us, and I'd like to certainly invite them to give their comments. But before I do that, I just want to stress again the importance of going to our website, taking the survey. We want to hear from you. We would encourage you to share the link with your family, your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues. We want as broad of a response on these questions that are facing the central area to understand where you see the challenges and where you see the opportunities. And then please come out and share your thoughts with us at an upcoming event. Now I'll turn it over to Alderman Burnett. Alderman Burnett, if you'd like to offer some comments. We also have Alderman Pat Dowell on the line with us. Alderman Dowell, would you like to offer comments?
Thanks, Heidi. I told Commissioner Cox that I would not offer comments tonight because I, like everyone else, wanted to take in this full presentation. I think it's critically important for my constituents and others that are here tonight to participate in this process so that it is not a top-down plan. It's important that people in the community really offer their opinions and input as this plan moves forward. And I just ask people to stay engaged. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman. Finally, I'd like to recognize Alderman Nicole Lee. Alderman Lee, if you're with us and you'd like to offer some comments, please go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Heidi, thank you. I'm just going to echo what Alderman Dowell said. I think it's really important that people participate. I'm really glad to see so many people on the webinar tonight and participating in this. And hopefully everybody will have an opportunity to show up to the in-person engagement opportunity. I think, like Alderwoman Dowell said, it's critically important that this be a process that people feel they can access and have some input on. If we don't have that, we're not really going to, I think, see or have the type of city that we actually really want for us to have, another 10 or 20 years from now. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. If there are any other aldermen who I've missed, please forgive me. And if you'd like to offer comments, please do so now.
I see Alderman Burnett, but he has his mute on.
Yeah, I just got back. I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi went out. What was the question, Commissioner?
We were wondering if you'd like to offer just a few comments or reflections at this time.
No, again, I think it would behoove all of us if we could send out notice of the next event in relationship to this to as many people as we can. And maybe try and get some PR from some free PR from the television, the mass media, and allow folks to get involved. I think this is fantastic. Good ideas. I really enjoy the fact that people were able to input their ideas in that collage of ideas. I thought that was cool. And again, I don't know if we're recording any of this because I was wondering if we could replay this on some of our websites or on the city's public channel, what have you, so people can get an idea of what's going on and they can have easy access to it. But I think this is great so far. I think this is very interesting.
Thanks so much, Alderman Burnett. And to answer your question, this has been recorded and will be posted tomorrow on the Central Area Update website. And the survey, if it is not available at this moment, should be available momentarily. So please keep your eye out for the survey and definitely complete that. Sign up for updates and follow us so that you can stay informed about our next events, because we would absolutely encourage your participation. We want to hear from you. With that, I'd like to go ahead and open the floor to some Q&A. And maybe if we start with questions that have been posted in the chat.
Yeah, so thank you to everyone who has posted questions in the Q&A box. That's kind of where we're gathering these from. And as Heidi mentioned, I actually just published the survey to the website, so it is available there now if you're interested. It's a longer survey. It's not just the short Menti polls. So please dive in whenever you have some time. I think one of the first questions that came in is what efforts will be made in this planning process to assure that the Loop is remade as an intergenerational community of the future, utilizing existing cultural, medical, and entertainment venues, from Christine. So thank you.
Christine, thank you for your question. That's absolutely cuts to the heart of what our initiative is all about. It's really understanding where the priorities lie and creating a downtown, a central area that is diverse as our neighborhoods, as our city, and also reflecting learning opportunities, lifelong learning opportunities that appeal to every demographic and every age. So understanding how we can reach out and where the needs are, I think is a critical part of what we'd like to hear from you.
Another question from Aubrey. Does the number of jobs downtown account for people who work from home, even though their companies are still technically based downtown? And then the second part of that is, will you cover at all the shifts we've seen since 2020 and things like office vacancy rates downtown?
So for that question, I'd like to ask Ranadeep if you could provide a little bit more detail on the data.
So, and I just want to confirm, Heidi, this was about office vacancy downtown, right? So I guess the data that we were showing is a little different from lease occupancy and vacancy. What we were showing is in-person occupancy, so people actually being in the office physically in person relative to pre-pandemic levels, and that's 50%. So lease occupancy, it's about 85% in the Chicago downtown area. So that's the vacancy would be about 15%. So that's lease occupancy, and versus what we were showing is in-person occupancy, people physically being there.
Great. There's a question from a attendee. Is there discussion around pedestrianizing streets?
Absolutely. I think that right now we are approaching this from a very broad informational visioning standpoint. I don't think that things are off the table. I think that we want to hear from you really what the sentiments are. It's certainly pedestrianizing streets has been part of the conversation downtown, dating back to when State Street was initially closed and mauled. So our history with pedestrianizing streets has been a long one, and I think that one that there is a lot of detail to explore, and we certainly hope to do that as part of this process.
And Heidi, Jeff Shriver from CDOT is on our panel, so he might want to chime in about some of these infrastructure related.
Sure, thank you. Jeff, if you have any comments, please jump in.
No, I think you said it right. I mean, at this stage, we're in idea and issues gathering, and I think we need to understand what the opportunities are and what the problems are, and then with the solutions will flow from that.
Thank you. Just one thing to note, a number of these questions are kind of about specific actions coming out of this plan. And as Heidi mentioned, and Jeff, we're really in the ideating phase of this process right now. So, there is no specific action yet. We haven't written the plan, and we want you to be part of that process. I don't know if Heidi, if there's anything else there that you want to add.
No, that's absolutely the case. This is really the first phase of this this process. This is a two-phase planning effort, and our first phase is really focused on visioning. It's focused on engagement and visioning, and we ultimately want to hear from you so that we can arrive at a point in September where we have a visioning document that will serve as a framework for the second phase, when we look at implementation, when we look at considering specific projects strategically.
There was just one question from Jeffrey, and I think there was maybe some data on this. Did we have an estimate of how many people live in the central area just as a residential population? Don't know, Ranadeep, if you had those numbers.
We do, and that was in the slide for a minute. It's about 182,000 residents living in the central area. This is the downtown district, specifically the boundary.
Great, thank you. There's just one question, and maybe this is something we can point people to the zoning map, but they're asking, is there a more interactive map that covers the boundaries of the plan? I think probably the zoning map would be the best place to look at that, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And the zoning map has several layers which you can turn on and off, one of which is the downtown boundary, the downtown zoning D district boundary. So I'd encourage you to visit the City of Chicago's zoning map and select that specific boundary, and you will see the very detailed boundary description for the current D district.
Great. I think there's another many questions just kind of about some specific projects. And that's a good question, I think. What can this plan do to address crime, safety, and homelessness in the loop and vacant storefronts?
I think that there is a broad recognition that all of those issues certainly demand our attention, and they have to be central to whatever vision we ultimately craft. So I think that, again, it really is an understanding what the concerns are, hearing from folks to understand, in the case of vacant storefronts, what types of activation processes would you like to see? Certainly, there's a toolbox that's out there, but I think that as part of this effort, we want to go beyond those, conventional tools, those typical ideas, and really explore maybe some transformational strategies.
Yes, sorry, Heidi. I think we're also already, throughout the pandemic, we've been doing engagement with stakeholders in the community, and certainly have heard safety concerns throughout this time, of course. And communication is really important, and I know that that has been improved in recent years between the police and a lot of the property owners and the chambers and through the alderman offices as well. This, obviously this framework needs to be continued, and we really do need to hear, I think, from folks their ideas of how we can work together on this issue, because it is something that I think is not solely in one group's authority or area. It's all of us working together to make sure, for example, some of the recovery funding has gone towards corridor ambassadors along some of our major Mag Mile, for example, and State Street. And so this has helped, I think, create more welcoming environments. But of course, we're looking for more ideas.
Great. I don't know, Ranadeep, but did you want to add to that as well?
Just one idea. I know this is, that, as Cindy said, there are many issues, but one idea which I think the city is already advancing is increasing residential development downtown. So if you have a number of workers reduced to 50%, you need to replace the activity downtown. And so just adding a lot more residential is one path. And you also get eyes on the street and the activity and the vitality, which would help with the crime issue as well.
Thank you. I think this is a really great question from Amanda. You know, you said, how will you reach out to more than the 200 people on this call to participate so that the ideation reflects the diversity of our city? And I don't know, Kim, if you want to talk a little bit about what some of our plan is for the community engagement.
Sure. So we are engaging, our plan is to engage with about a dozen community-based organizations to work with us on doing everything from sharing information on their social media channels and inviting their constituents, wherever they are, whatever they do, to be a part of the plan, as well as inviting them and to host pop-up events that engages the public where they are, where their organizations are. So I see some of the lovely comments in the chat are asking us about rolling this out to all the other residents outside of this, the central area, or engaging the South and West sides. We're engaging young people. And so that's part of the plan. We will be working with community-based organizations that reach young people, reach different demographics, so that we can make sure we hear from as many people as possible. I also saw the question of how can people continue to be a part of this ideation? And I just want to stress that the survey is one way you can do that. And then there will be a public meeting coming up in June that you will be invited to. So we look forward to seeing you there.
Great. Well, I think is that the May 23rd public meeting we're talking about?
I'm sorry, I said June, yes. Wishful thinking. It's May 23rd. Thank you, Gabby.
Yes, it will be an open house in the Winter Garden at the Harold Washington Library from 4:30 to 6:30, I think is what you said, Heidi, earlier.
Yes.
So definitely put that on your calendar to stop by. And we will also be adding a calendar of events to, as we're kind of planning these pop-ups, to the website as well. So if you sign up to get updates, you'll get kind of regular news about this process. Did you want us to do a few more questions, or should we wrap things up at this point?
Why don't we go ahead and take a couple more questions?
Okay.
Thanks, Gabby.
This is a good question. Will you also look at what other world cities are doing to regenerate their downtown areas? So globally, and I would say probably nationally too.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, we really started this process with that in mind, looking at best practices from communities who have recently undertaken similar large-scale planning processes. We've been working closely with Bloomberg Associates to really understand it and get their information and their I think expert opinion about what has been successful in recent plans across the country and on an international basis. Cindy, you might have something to add to that.
No, I think you covered it, and you know, we did start off our process with looking into how other cities have updated their downtown plans, not just in the US, but in other major cities. So that's definitely something we've been looking at, and we've been following this closely as well, you know, throughout the pandemic, because you know, we're not the only city that has been negatively impacted by the pandemic. The downtowns everywhere, you know, remote work is something that's really a new reality, and we do need to make sure we shore up our downtowns so that they're vibrant and welcoming for everyone. And so, you know, one of the things we are working to implement is bringing in new residential units, as Ranadeep explained. You know, along LaSalle Street, we did launch that initiative, and it's not just about bringing in new residential units; it's about bringing new mixed income residential units, so that people because we recognize that even though downtown has been growing, even during the pandemic, downtown has been growing. We really have a lack of affordable housing in the Loop, a lack of affordable housing across the city. So that's why we're forming these development pipelines and forming these public-private partnerships so that we can make sure that there are affordable housing options right in downtown, right? For all the workers who are employed in downtown in the service industry, the hotel industry, restaurant industry. These are people who would benefit really from from having the option of working and living downtown. And then it brings in that vitality on the weekday evenings and on the weekends that is a little bit lacking in downtown, but it's everywhere in all the other neighborhoods. So definitely something we think will make a big difference.
Great. And related to that, there are a few questions about, are we partnering with the Department of Housing or IHDA to work on housing, and another comment related to, will this help reduce segregation around the city? And I don't know if you want to address some of that. I know that's something that Commissioner Novara has talked about with LaSalle Street Reimagined and some of the affordable housing work that is happening.
Yeah, and all of our initiatives that relate to housing, we do collaborate very closely with the Department of Housing, and Commissioner Novara has been we're partners in the LaSalle initiative in trying to bring in more affordable housing in Fulton Market. So we have been working with them, and we will continue to do so. It's been a great relationship, and of course, we are also in constant communication with CHA and other affordable housing institutions in the city.
Great. Well, I think we have a lot of other really great questions, and we will try to put together commonly asked questions or frequently asked questions FAQ on our website from some of the stuff that you've put together here. So thank you for all of these. They're definitely being recorded and something that we'll address. Heidi, do you want to take us home?
Sure. Thanks so much, Gabby. I just want to extend my deepest thanks to everyone who's joined today. Your voice is critical to this process. This visioning process happens with you, and hearing your thoughts and you having your input is absolutely critical to our process. So I encourage you to please remember to head to our website, take the survey, sign up for updates, stay in contact with us, and please participate in upcoming in-person events that we have. On May 23rd at the Harold Washington Library, we hope to see you at the open house, and we hope to see you throughout the summer at other pop-up events. So thank you again, and have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.